Welcome, Jason Friend and Ryan Heath. Jason, the president of C1Gov, and Ryan, the CTO for C1Gov. I'm Keith Nakasone, a consultant and an advisory board member for C1Gov. We're here today to talk about private 5G and the vision and the strategy of how things are going to be moving forward in the public sector. Jason, when we talk about the technology, we all know that it's not just about the technology itself, that we have to look at the people and the process as well. So when we look at this technology for private 5G and we look at the customer experience and the user experience, how does that fold into the business strategy and what you're going to do for the public sector going forward?
Our approach to 5G really evolved from two different directions. On the one hand, it came from some strong relationships we have with technology partners like Ciena, who play important roles in the infrastructure, but it also evolved from conversations with our customers about the mission need. As we had discussions about solving problems for some of those customers, especially on the DoD side, some use cases began to become a part of the conversation, and we started to identify some areas that private 5G could really meet the mission need and solve some problems for them. So, talking to the Air Force as an example, they have a need to get faster, better communications at the flight line because they've got some very expensive equipment that they're flying these days that is essentially a giant sensor. It collects a huge amount of data. So when that plane lands, they need to get the data off of it as quickly as they possibly can. And their current infrastructure doesn't really support that. So private 5G could be a perfect answer.
And when you look at the human capital side and you're looking at the engagements, it's not, from a work skill perspective and looking at how you engage with customers are really key in leveraging the technology. So understanding customer requirements are so important through that engagement process, right? So as we go through this process, and Ryan, if you can jump in, I know you've been looking and studying at some of the 5G use cases for public sector and knowing the differences from a base post camp station as well as a campus environment. When you look at the different areas, as a CTO, how do you engage and how do you look at that from a customer's viewpoint and support the customers going forward?
Yeah, so it comes down to there's a lot of customer struggles right now where 5G would actually help solve some of those and provide a better outcome for them. So they're going through these processes where they have to run something out. They don't have the connectivity, suck the information off, or process something and then take it back internally. To either download additional information, store it, process it again, come back out to the site. Now, that could be a tactical issue, that could be a flight line related issue, just standard base coverage. So it's really just giving them the connectivity that they need to do their job.
So when we look at the challenges that they're faced, we know that they're going to be leveraging more technology, right? They're going to use more from machine to machine systems, et cetera, augmented workforce. And we're looking within the buildings and how that last half mile is so important. When you look at those technologies and when you engage with those customers, if you applied one private 5G use case in a certain location, are you able to actually replicate everything and use it in another location from a technical perspective?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that kind of overlap. If you look at maybe like what it takes to actually do a space launch or a missile launch, and all the different things that they're looking to put sensors on, it's not just the rocket or the missile; it's the outlying sensors from weather barometers and all the different tactical things that they have around those drones, etc. So there's just so many different applications that they can use this for and things that they're trying to get connectivity for that they don't have active real-time connectivity today, or it's really hard for them to get that access.
And, the importance of collaboration, right? When we talk about that the operators and the people in the field and how they're going to operate and understanding their challenges and solving those mission requirements is going to be key moving forward as we look at how do they operationalize these private 5G environments. So, Jason, when we talk about the technology, but also the processes that are involved, is this a one and done, or is it a continuous process that the workforce has to be able to innovate and adopt and move forward from a human capital? So, from a business strategy perspective and a vision of C1Gov, what are you going to do to help evolve the process with this partnership and relationship building within the public sector?
Well, it's a good question. So our focus is really on the entire life cycle, because I think that's really important with this technology. Like a lot of others, this is one that is evolving rapidly. So, people have been talking about implementing 5G, and especially, again, private 5G in these environments for a while now, and are still trying to make sure that they have the right design and right approach before they move forward beyond, let's say, a proof of concept. But in the meantime, the technology is advancing, and now people are already talking about next G, 10G, whatever that may be. So it's important, I think, to just acknowledge that the technology is rapidly getting better, but that's not a reason not to do something today. So there is immediate advantage that our customers can realize. And what we'd like to see them do is move forward, realize those advantages now, and understand that we'll be there to help them through the life cycle of this. So as the technology needs to be upgraded and evolve to support new standards and protocols, we'll be there to help them do that.
And that's great to hear because, from a customer engagement perspective, it's, a lot of people get through that procurement process and, get the award, but where's that follow through, right? To ensure that the mission is met, the customer, then there's true customer success.
I think it's incredibly important. And that's also why a lot of our customers are looking at consuming this as a service, because that protects them from technology debt.
So, Ryan, from a technology perspective, what do you think customers need to focus on when they're considering private 5G?
Yeah, there's a couple different things. So, looking at the infrastructure that the 5G is touching, how it rides the network, how we optimize that network piece, how we're going to start slicing up the network for multiple missions within the 5G spectrum, getting the spectrum manager at each base camp fort, situated so they understand what the control is. Making sure that the big part of this whole thing is really on the site survey part, making sure that we have the coverage and the bandwidth across the board. And there's a lot of different ways that we can do backhauls, that are kind of really important and key, especially on the tactical side or remote cases. So just kind of really understanding what the mission is, how it's accomplished, and providing the technology on the 5G side to make that happen. And then the security piece is a huge other aspect to this. So we can put in QKD to completely isolate the security perspective of the whole 5G aspect. And you're also controlling all the SSIDs. So the end devices are important. Right now, you can't bring your iPhone in and plug it into a private 5G on the N79 band. Maybe that will change in the future, but right now it's controlled. You have to have, basically two SIM cards on certain devices that are authorized. So you have full control of that, which is a positive thing on the security piece.
And the importance of understanding from a customer's perspective and the environment and the constraints and the challenges that they may have in a specific area, understanding that is also key when you're looking at a private 5G solution.
Yeah, and that also kind of goes back to just the maintenance of the system and the ongoing support, especially on the tactical side or remote kits. Those things are going to get banged up all the time. They're going to be used in very intense scenarios in some cases. So having a process to bring those back in, get them back up to spec, or even upgrades at that point as well.
Let's pivot a little bit on the data, right? When we talk about private 5G, how does this help protect the data in that type of base post camp or in the environment that they're building out capabilities?
Yep. So the private 5G that we're talking about is using the N79 band, which is the NATO band. So there's no devices right now in the US that you can go get from, from a store and then attached to that 5G network. So it's very specialized pieces of SIM cards and equipment um, that you have full control over. So you have a database that you control of who's allowed
Mhm.
to access the network. You could take those individuals on, off, etc. But then really doing all the encryption pieces from the devices all the way through the network. So typically we'll backhaul a lot of this stuff with on the Sienna platform, which we could do line encryption. We could also put the QDM pieces in place, so it's got extra encryption across the board that can't be hacked. So on the security side, it's as tight as I've seen on any wireless 5G, 6G spectrum.
That's great to hear because we know that the public sector is all about protecting their data and making sure that there's the security measures and controls are all in place. So that's awesome to hear that you have a focus in that area as well.
And you can think this is very sensitive information that the 5G is touching,
Mhm.
from drones to certain sensors, tactical vehicles, etc. So it's something that you don't want adversaries to get a hand of.
So Jason, when we talk about all of this technology and what's going to happen in the future, we always talk about the skill sets and the multi-generational workforce, right? We have different age groups in using and leveraging the technology. From a strategy perspective, do you see any kind of, from a human capital perspective, what do you need to do and consider as a company as you move forward with ensuring that your staff and the engagements that you have the right skills and talents moving forward?
It's a challenge for us, like any organization, to make sure that we are bringing in young, talented people with the technical skills necessary to deploy these technologies, and offering roles that are tied to something that is important and growing, like 5G, helps us attract great people. But the DoD has, sort of a similar challenge in a way that 5G, I think, can help solve. So they're trying to attract and retain young, talented people. But the expectation these days is for constant connectivity. So when we're out in the world, if we are, out of range of a cell tower for a minute or two, it's a real issue.
Mhm.
People want to be constantly connected. In a
Mhm.
DoD environment, that's often very, very challenging. You've got people who, may be reluctant to come on board and work in that environment when they know that they're going to be restricted. They're not going to have that constant connectivity. So this is a way to solve that problem without question. And that's why I think this is going to be very, very beneficial. Again, not just for sort of the tactical mission requirements, but just from a human capital standpoint.
And recruiting young military and active soldiers, right? I mean, they want to stay connected. They still want to support their country, still want to do their mission and their jobs, but they also want to be connected to their family members, etc. So I think it is definitely key on how they can create an environment to support the entire workforce at large as well, right? And
Yes.
so as we move forward, so when we have any kind of engagements with the private sector customers, or they're looking for private 5G, and having those engagements upfront early, any kind of insights on how to structure, handle, deliver, or cross collaborate, facilitate having those discussions with the public sector.
Yeah, it's really kind of understanding, even from the top down, what everyone is looking for. Just on like the base coverage, having somebody at the top level be able to have connectivity inside a building and then walk through to another building and have the same connectivity. Right now, as soon as they walk out of that building, they lose the connectivity. They can't do anything. So they have to go to inside the building, get access again, and then get the information. And it seems very simple, but doesn't exist really on the majority of bases and in forts across the U.S.
And the reason why for that line of questioning is sometimes we see you know procurements going out that don't really align with the different environments. So if a customer is trying to deploy a private 5G with using an augmented resource such as contract supports, etc., having that alignment upfront from getting the procurement correct to ensuring that the requirements are laid out correct is key in ensuring that mission success, right?
Yeah, it is. And then you also have to really understand if it's, true private 5G or is it, telco provided 5G. You don't want that information that you typically sharing going through the public network. So talking through that and making sure that they understand that, because from a contracting perspective, they're going to see 5G like, okay, this telco provider can provide us 5G for the base. That doesn't mean that it's going to be secure. You have full control over it. It's just public access.
Like any other emerging technology, it's difficult sometimes for contracting officers and specialists, and even sometimes the program people, to stay up to date on all the latest details around the technology and really understand what some of the nuances are between different solutions. So what we try to do is make sure that we communicate as often as possible and keep our customers up to date so that they can make educated decisions.
And that's when we want to bring the spectrum manager in. We want to bring the security team in, the network team in, as well as contracting, so they all understand what their roles are within the solution set, and that really that's going to work at the end of the day and meet all the requirements that they have. Because you can go down this road and then all of a sudden on the security side,
Right.
it gets nixed and they're not really going to deploy it or use it. And I've seen that in multiple bases where they've tried similar scenarios to this that are more public, and it's useless. They've signed the contract, they get it up, and we can't use it because the mission dictates certain security requirements.
So Jason, Ryan, this has been a great discussion about private 5G deployments and the strategy of what C1Gov is doing and moving forward. Really appreciated this time to have the discussion. As a advisory board member to C1Gov, I enjoy working with both of you. This is a great opportunity for us to engage, collaborate, and being able to deliver solutions to the public sector. As you know, my passion is to continue to support public sector entities and drive innovation and change within government. And it takes this active private-public engagement to actually happen. So as we move forward, we're going to continue to have these collaboration sessions and help facilitate the change and help innovate within the public sector. So thank you.
Thanks, Keith.